Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My pleasure to introduce to you Senator John McCain. He'll read a statement and then he'll be available for questions.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this morning, and I want to thank our Charge A and the U.S. Embassy for all of their support in this very important visit. It's a true pleasure for me to return to this country after 15 years. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world, full of decent, amazing people who inspire me every single day. It's wonderful to be back. Over the past 2 days, I've had a chance to meet with senior leaders in the new civilian government, including both speakers of parliament and the first vice president. I have met with political opposition, ethnic minority leaders, both in and out of the government. I met with recently released political prisoners, some of whom had been detained for as long as 20 years. I've met a few living saints, men and women who are providing extraordinary and desperately needed services to the poorest people in this country. And of course, I've met with Aung San Suu Kyi, who has been a personal hero of mine for decades, and whose standard of service to her fellow citizens I can only marvel at and seek to emulate. It was clear from my meetings in Naypyidaw that the new government wants a better relationship with the United States. And I was equally clear that this is an aspiration that I and my government share. The United States is not condemned to have bad relations with any country. I asked the new government to grant the International Red Cross immediate and unfettered access to all prisoners in this country, which would help to improve their conditions. Another step, as called for by the UN Human Rights Council, is ensuring the safety and human rights of Aung San Suu Kyi, especially as she seeks to travel around the country in the near future, as she has stated she will. Aung San Suu Kyi's last attempt to travel freely was marred by violence, and the new government's ability and willingness to prevent a similar outcome this time will be an important test of their desire for change. For the protection of Aung San Suu Kyi should not be seen as special treatment for one famous citizen, but rather as a demand of human dignity to which every citizen of this country is entitled. In addition to guaranteeing the rights and freedom of movement of Aung San Suu Kyi, the UN Human Rights Council has also urged this new government to begin a democratic process of national reconciliation, a genuine attempt to unite this country through peaceful dialogue. It's the judgment of the Human Rights Council, and I concur with it, that to be legitimate, such a process of reconciliation would have to involve Aung San Suu Kyi, ethnic minority, and other opposition leaders. And the National League for Democracy, which has been recognized before, should be recognized again as a legitimate political party. Finally, the new government must abide by its international obligations to uphold United Nations Security Council resolutions regarding non-proliferation and to cease any military cooperation with the government of North Korea. Concrete steps like these need not and should not take a lot of time. They should be done quickly. If the new government is willing, and they could be met with reciprocal steps by the United States to contribute to improved relations, this attempted engagement should be time-bound and results-oriented. And in the meantime, the community of responsible nations should continue to push for a commission of inquiry, which has nothing to do with vengeance or retribution, and everything to do with accountability and justice for the people of this country. Similarly, as Aung San Suu Kyi herself has stated, without concrete actions by this government that signal a deeper commitment to democratic change, there should be no easing or lifting of sanctions. In fact, we should seek to do a more effective job of implementing existing sanctions. Is interested, genuinely interested in a dialogue and reconciliation with the United States and with other nations including the European Union. The question is whether that desire will be translated into concrete actions, which I covered in my statement. On the issue of political prisoners, I don't expect people to take my word for it, or even the United States word for it, that there are 2,000 political prisoners. I do know that the most respected organizations and human rights organizations in the world state, without a doubt, there are over 2,000 political prisoners here in this country. So we have to respect their judgment, and I hope, and I can guarantee you, the international community looks to these organizations as the definitive opinions and assessments of the situation.
Finding during your trip to this country, how would you assess the progress so far of the Obama administration's engagement policy on Myanmar? Are you optimistic about their success?
You know, I'm always optimistic, and I mean that, because as I said, the winds of change are blowing around the world. The world is a far different place today than it was even 6 months ago. And with progress, there's turmoil, as we well know. The fundamentals of this change are people's yearning and unquenchable desire to have a free and democratic society. And I believe that that has also had an impact here in this country. So I believe that in a period of weeks, we will know whether this new government, civilian government, is sincere and is willing to make the changes necessary to bring about a reconciliation with people here, but also with the United States and the European Union.
Can we expect
With the Associated Press, good morning, Senator. You just mentioned that you expect some tangible results in a few weeks, within weeks. I mean, can you elaborate a bit on that? I mean, what do we have to expect?
Well, as I mentioned, the International Red Cross action could be accomplished tomorrow, obviously. That would be the beginning. In the case of the improvement of our relations with Vietnam, we laid out a roadmap, and that was a roadmap that was followed by both countries. And we could, with dialogue and negotiations, we could lay out a roadmap with this government.
Commitment, are you convinced that the government is committed to democratic reforms in the country?
As I said, I believe this government is very interested in a better relationship with the United States and the European Union and other countries. The question is whether that commitment will reach a level which then makes this, which then this government would take concrete steps which would lead to a better relationship. And I laid out in my statement some of those steps that would need to be taken. And again, I want to emphasize, I do not speak for the President of the United States, but the administration and the Congress are together on this issue. And we will continue to stay together. There will be no divisions between President Obama and myself or members of Congress. Concerning North Korean weaponry that has been acquired by this country, and there have been allegations in the media of issue that there's been some relationships concerning nuclear capabilities. I do not know if those are true or not, but I am not accusing the government of that. I am saying that we expect the government to adhere to international treaties and commitments on proliferation of weapons. I have not seen evidence of either beginning or stopping of the nuclear program. Certainly, we would expect every nation to adhere to the international agreements concerning proliferation of nuclear weapons.
Sanctions and can make human rights issue better?
Well, first of all, I respect the government's relationship with whoever that they want to have a relationship with. I would hope that that relationship between this country and China would be one that is fair and balanced, and that the great natural resources of this country are not exploited, nor the beautiful environment harmed as part of that relationship. The United States and the United Nations Human Rights Council and other organizations believe that all nations should have the right to determine their own future, but the citizens of those nations also have individual rights. So we will continue to advocate for human rights and progress in every nation in the world. And we will support the people who rise up in a square in Egypt, or a young man who burned himself to death in Tunisia because he was humiliated by the police. And we will continue to stand up for those human rights. And I hope our expectations are not for immediate change, but we think we have every right to see a step-by-step improvement in the situation here in this country, and the United States relationship, therefore, would improve as well. This is a beautiful and wonderful country with gentle and wonderful people. And our relationship goes back to World War II. We would like to see that relationship restored, but we also will continue to advocate here and everywhere in the world for the rights of every human being